only 1% of tech businesses get venture capital funding. So it's very hard. You should not be, like when you start a business, you should not be raising capital. You should be actually finding customers.
Today we have an accomplished guest, Sean Tepper, the founder and CEO of Tykr. Tykr is transforming the world of stock investing, making it more accessible and understandable for everyone. I'm here to dive into what motivated Sean to create this groundbreaking company and uncover the secrets behind its impressive growth. Sean, good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Joe, thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. And I always like to start with, what inspired the idea for the company?
My background is about 20 years in tech. Built my first business in the 2000s. It was an agency just building software websites. We did some video for small businesses. Made like no money through the recession. This was like 2006 to 2010. Although in that last year, we did start growing a little quicker. And a few other agencies started noticing. And there was one agency that approached us and said, "Hey, would you like to merge with us?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I need it out. If any of your listeners or friends have a service business, that's fine. I tell people do it if you love it. I did not love it, so I want it out." Now, I wasn't like written a check for $1 million, like, "Hey, here you go." Service businesses don't sell in most cases for any multiple. So it was all debts and liabilities wiped clean. Fresh start. So I knew at that point, because we worked with a lot of businesses, I knew the business I wanted to create, which is SaaS, software as a service, but I didn't have a solution in mind. So path of least resistance, I went to work for large corporations, planned to do that for 2 years. That turned into 12 years. Sometimes it takes a little longer to create a business than you need. But anyway, started investing in private companies, not public, not stocks, but private companies, thinking, hey, I went through a merger. I'm a smart guy. I can do this with a tech company. I made some money, but I lost some money over 5 years, break even. So it brings us to 2015. I started really getting into the stock market, but I knew like guys like Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, they're able to beat the market consistently. They're not gambling men. Like these men don't use feelings or emotions to buy stocks, which means they're using some sort of logic. Now I kind of reverse engineer things. And I said, okay, so they're starting with math. That's for sure their starting point. And I went down the YouTube rabbit hole, read as many books as I could to learn the formulas. And there's a guy out there by the name of Phil Town, which he actually did help out a little bit in his books. One is called Rule One. The other one is called Payback Time. He has a third book called Invested. He wrote with his daughter, Danielle. I did not read it, but I'm sure it's great. And I started applying some of the calculus into an Excel sheet to help myself make decisions, to really know, like, is a stock, like is Tesla or is Netflix or is Apple a good or bad investment? I wanted that black or white, red light, green light decision. And I had to kind of create my own algorithm. So I used what I found, tweaked it, created a gamified point system from 0 to 100, and the higher the score, the safer the investment. So anyway, I used that for 4 years, making returns between 15 and 50%. In fact, it was closer to the 50%. To give you context, the S&P 500 is usually about 6 to 8% per year after inflation. So I'm like, all right, so I'm beating the market. 2019 comes around. I start sharing the Excel sheet with a few retail investors, just regular guys like you and I, along with an institution or two. And everybody was like, hey, you should turn this Excel sheet into a software. Finally, after 10 years, I've got a SaaS idea that has some potential. 2020, we went live. It took a year to build the first version. Then it took 6 months to get the first paying customer, which was a humbling experience. But I kind of, that's how building software goes. You should not be focused on making money. You should be focused on getting people onto the platform for free. But in return, you get feedback really fast. Know what's working, what's not working, what do you like, what don't you like. That's wise product development. So yeah, then we just use that feedback. Fast forward to 2024, and now we have a little over 9,000 customers in about 50 countries. And we're proud to say this: we're big on customer service. So our Trustpilot score is a 4.9 out of 5.
I saw that on your website. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And just give you context on our model so people know, we're a stock screener and educational platform. You still need a broker like a Robinhood or a TD Ameritrade, or if you're overseas, it could be eToro or Interactive Brokers. That's where you connect your bank account, buy and sell. We're the tool that goes along with that. So, like, again, is Tesla actually a good investment, or is Apple a good investment? So on and so forth.
When you were evaluating the idea, how did you figure this could sort of be unique in this investment landscape, I guess?
One of my biggest passions is investing. And then I started looking at screeners. Screeners should guide you to a wise investment, but most of them are really hard to use. Like, there's 100 different indicators. It's like, do I make a buy decision or sell decision? You just don't know. And I'm like, there's an easier way to do this. There's a better way, and you can make it easier for the consumer. So that was my starting point to really find you want to find a wide moat. Like, if you got a narrow moat, meaning you have a lot of competition, you maybe don't want to pursue that path. So there are a lot of brokers in the world, and they're all pretty good. And I'm like, I don't want to do that because the world has enough brokers, but they don't have a tool that really gives people guidance, like to know what to look for, what to avoid, when to buy, when to sell. Nobody's really doing that or doing that well. So there was an opportunity there. And it's like, you got to strike while the iron's hot. That was the philosophy. You got to move with purpose.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, people do. I think they get overwhelmed because a lot of people don't really understand. Okay, how do I do this? Do I just let a broker do this and pick that, or put my money in a 401k? How about when you're like evaluating like the feasibility of the idea as a whole? Like,
Yeah, this goes back to the kind of the product development approach of talking to customers. And this is really crucial too. You'll talk to entrepreneurs that'll try to create something that's way off and left field, maybe new, maybe blue ocean, which is fine, but that's hard to do. You want to actually keep it right in that same, I use the analogy swim lane a lot. You want to kind of stay in the same swim lane so people know what you're like. Like, hey, we are an easier to use version of screener XYZ. So the feasibility, we knew there's a better way, because most people we talk to that use other screeners still are like, I don't know if I should buy this stock. And then you ask the question, well, what would give you a good indication to move forward or not move forward? Like, what's a good black and white indicator? And you start asking those questions. A book that can help people, you probably heard it mentioned, or you maybe even read it, which is the mom test. You don't want to ask if people like your tool. You want to ask, what other tools are they using, and why are they paying for it? Like, what are the features that are like, this is a non-negotiable, you have to pay for? Like, I will, when you find that out, then you add that to your tools. You don't have to like, come up with the next Facebook. Like, it's very hard to do that. Product development and make money in a product is just asking the right questions, and then you can find feasibility in your market.
that totally makes sense. Is that, and when you're sort of like maybe testing like the viability, are you bringing in people to test the software? Like, what sort of strategies do you bring in to say, okay, let's just see if this actually works with people?
Well, obviously you want a working prototype, and that's a good place to start. However, you could, and this is what I recommend to people who are really bootstrapping, and most people are, and so people know, only 1% of tech businesses get venture capital funding. So it's very hard. You should not be, like, when you start a business, you should not be raising capital. You should be actually finding customers. You get the free ones on first, get their feedback. But I'll get tactical for you. Like, what is the fastest way to get feedback? Well, you can email people and ask them to email you back. But what's even better, thank you, COVID. I mean, it wasn't great for everybody, but it really projected our process of using Zoom and Teams and other platforms like it. So get on Zoom calls, half hour to an hour, schedule those meetings and try to stack them, get like 2, 3 a day, and do that for weeks. Then you can get some real feedback. You can start asking those questions, and people give you an answer, but you want to be able to ask questions against those answers to dive in even deeper. And you can't really do that on email. You got to get people on calls. So yeah, that's the tactical approach. Email is one thing. Get them on Zoom. That's even better.
Yeah, the face to face, and you mentioned a bit about venture capital. How did you fund like this? Because again, you're launching in the pandemic, all that kind of stuff. How are you funding this?
It's Bootstrap. So
All of it. Okay.
I'm 100% owner. I built the MVP for about $30,000 of my own money. I've had multiple income streams. You could consulting, so it's trade your time. So I did corporate consulting for, again, 12 years. That's one revenue stream. But I also did help small businesses, sometimes mid-sized, sometimes tech startups. And I always saved money there waiting for my next idea, if you will, and to execute on that. So I put 30 grand in an MVP. Some people may be a little intimidated by that. I recommend start with Figma, because Figma you can design and create like functional prototypes to a degree. So you can kind of simulate what the experience will be. I mean, we're talking a few grand to get help from a designer, and you can create something to get on Zoom calls, get their feedback, to really know what people want, and then go create a software version. It helps to have the right people on the team. We could talk about that all day.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I mean, again, especially when you're dealing in that space you're in, and I was going to ask you because you did mention, the pandemic. What kind of kink did that throw into launching, like that sort of roadmap to like, okay, we're going to launch in 2020, or did that shift things because of obviously what happened?
It actually didn't even matter. I know more brick and mortar. I've been, I listen to podcasts like you probably do too. And these brick and mortar companies will be like, they slow down significantly. So then they unlock an e-commerce element to their business. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was in a position where after 12, not after 12 years, it was probably after 8 years, I was really fed up with corporate America. I mean, I learned a lot. I'm forever grateful for the companies I worked for, but I just was not passionate for corporate America. I want my own schedule. I want to build my own product. I want to scale my own entity. So, and I was nearing 40 at that point. I'm just over 40 now. I'm like, I was literally telling myself it's a mindset thing, which is I could literally be in this position for the next 20 years. I got to move with an idea now. And I like investing. I've done the homework. I've done the feedback. I've got to execute. So it was like, that's 30 grand. Let's start spending it and turn this thing in a prototype, and let's just move. It's not going to be pretty. Let's just put one foot in front of the other and get this thing out the door and keep building. And it was one of those things where it's like, come hell or high water, I'm making this happen. Like, thank God, he's opened the right doors and things are happening. But there are moments it's like you hit a roadblock, go left, hit a roadblock, go right. Like you got to make those pivots and got to make those moves. But it was a point in time like I'm nearing 40. I got to make this happen. Otherwise, I'm going to be sitting here forever.
Yeah, yeah. And so you mentioned V1, V2. What were like sort of your biggest struggles just in the start?
So finding product market fit is very hard, and I've been building tech for a long time. If you work for a large company, you have more money and you can play with more resources to find a product that people will use, and not only use, but they'll talk about and share with their friends. Like that's the ultimate. I had team members. We could talk about that wanted to create a really simple, easy to use tool, and I'm like, no. Like we can't give people a car that doesn't have heating, air conditioning, power windows, and only 3 wheels. Like you can't do that. You have to give people a car that has everything, but then you got to make it a little easier. And that took a long time. It probably took, we're going to be 4 years old in July. It probably took a good 2.5, 3 years to find product market fit. And how do you calculate product market fit? Well, the answer is, and there's a good book out there that goes into it a little bit, which is called T2D3, and all about SaaS businesses. But a great benchmark, numerical benchmark, is 5.75% churn, monthly churn or less. If you can get there, that's a good indicator. Finding product market fit is the hardest thing. If you've been working for public companies, you know how to build and scale businesses. After you find product market fit, it should be relatively easy to gain momentum, marketing, sales. If you can build partnerships, that's all easy. But product market fit is the discipline of asking the right questions and giving people what they want, not just what one or two people want, but what a lot of people want. And that takes a lot of interviews, a lot of feedback. We use a tool called Looped In. You guys should go sign up for that. It allows your audience to upvote their favorite features and then even add ideas, and other people can upvote those ideas. So based on math, you can determine what people want. And then, of course, you want to get people on the call and start asking about those features. Like, why did you upvote that feature? Why do you want it? Some cases it's black or white, but others it's like ask those questions. But anyway, product market fit, that's the number one hardest thing in a tech startup. That was our hardest hurdle.
Yeah, and you had so much experience coming into this. Were there mentors or maybe coaches that maybe you leaned on in starting a product business?
I didn't get any specific mentors, but I've always been somebody who I would phrase it as an ethical spy. And what I mean by that is when I would go work for companies, I would ask questions, not right away, but I'd wait a good 3, 6 months and then start asking questions like, what do you do for sales and marketing? Walk me through the process. Or let's go sales. Like, how do you negotiate? What does that look like? What do the contracts look like? In marketing, what are you doing for ad spend with Facebook, with Google? What moves the needle the most with channel partnerships? Most people don't think about this, but the fastest way that big businesses, publicly traded companies grow, it's not Facebook ads and not Google ads. That's all cute. It's channel partnerships. It's what other businesses are you lining with to get in front of a massive audience today? I did a lot of my career was primarily project management. So operations, processes, you think about process engineering, how do you streamline stuff? That's all pretty straightforward. So I had to learn, how do big businesses really market and sell? So I gained that experience, and I side hustled a few startups, through the years, and I kind of shut them down because there wasn't product market fit or just not the right partner. And this is one where I'm like, apply what you did with big business and let's just apply for it. It just takes time. So
When you started this, like to now, is there anything maybe you wish you had done differently during the inception of the business?
yeah, I didn't know about Figma or wasn't that knowledgeable. I would have, instead of that first MVP, I would have saved the 30 grand and probably spent like 3 to 5 grand creating a Figma prototype. That would have been the inception to really get people what they're looking for, do those Zoom interviews, and then apply that. Let's say $25,000 left over to apply to the V2, and then I would have done V3 as V2. Like, that would have cut out a year of work, and I would have started. I had team members, that were anti-mobile app, but they're very technical. This can be a common problem. It's not all technical people, but when you have software engineers that use like 30-inch monitors and that's all they use, they think the rest of the world uses 30-inch monitors. Like, no, 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 no. Like, you're in LA. If you're walking down a street in LA, if you're walking somewhere in New York or Chicago, any major city, or really anywhere, and people are looking at their phones, if you walked up to them and asked them, are you looking at a website or are you looking at a mobile app? Guess what their answer is going to be? In most cases, 99% of the time, it's a mobile app.
Yeah, I was gonna say because they don't know. I remember there used to be like what WAP sites back in like WAP or something. I can't recall, but I remember seeing them a lot. They were like a buzz thing at the time, but not sure if they're even utilized anymore. But of course, yeah, everyone would say it's an app.
Yeah, like now it's apps. So, and they were, no, 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 like a mobile app's not going to do it. Well, guess what? We launched the mobile app and now our daily active users are increasing. Why is that? Well, because people use apps. Now, if you're a B2B SaaS, then a web app makes sense because people are in the business, they're running their businesses like large corporations. In most cases, they're PC. Not everybody gets a Mac. That'd be quite expensive, but right, most large corporations, everybody's using PCs with Office Suite. It is the go-to 99% of the time. That's it. When you're B2C, that's our main focus right now. You have to be mobile. We, for business and where it's going, we will be soon serving B2B. So the web app in place it's like, I'm kind of glad we have it. But part of me for a while was like, gosh, we have this stupid web app and everybody's using mobile applications.
As you're growing, you mentioned year one. There weren't, I guess, because it was just you, right? So you're kind of building this company yourself, your own money. Looking at like year one through today, like could you sort of like paint a picture of the growth? Obviously, you said you're up to like 9,000 users now, but like from year one over the almost 40 years, could you paint a picture of that growth?
Yeah, so I'll go over customer counts, and then I'll be transparent with revenue as well. So with customer counts, 2020, it was really July to the end of the year. We maybe got like, 300, and majority of those were all free people. Now, the end of 2020, we started doing lifetime deals on different sites. There's other platforms out there that do that, where you can pay like $99 or $120 or whatever for lifetime access. And I did do a lot of homework on those. One of them is AppSumo, another one is Stack Social. We went on to AppSumo first, and it's a great way to get people in the platform. It does multiple things. It can help fund development so you can achieve product market fit. At the same time, you get feedback really fast. So we started running deals there in parallel, really started working on SEO. Then affiliate marketing a little bit, and just word of mouth started growing. But anyway, 2021, I think we got to 2,000 users. 2022 up to 4,000 users. 2023 8,000. So we're doubling. 2,000, 4,000, 8,000. Now where we're at in 24, we're going to be crossing here 10,000 pretty soon. But what happened at the end of 23 is we found product market fit. Organic traffic started increasing. So now our reoccurring, our MRR is now increasing. Finally, in a SaaS business, it can take 3 to 5 years. Some people are, they'll see those Instagram stories of somebody standing in front of a private jet or a Lamborghini. It's like, oh man, my business grew up in 6 months. It's like, that does not happen. It's and one of my buddies who's got it's a marketplace app. It took him 5 years to get to 1 million ARR. It's like, okay, it takes a long time. So we're on track. So those are the customer counts. I think 2021 was probably about 120,000. 22 was 150, 23, 170,000. So the numbers are not, as you see, they're not huge. They're not doubling because they're not reoccurring revenue. They're the lifetime customers, and that can be very risky for a business. We could talk about that, but we're going to be pulling the plug on lifetime deals here as our MRR hits that point, and then the exponential growth should be the doubling, like we talked about. That's how a SaaS should operate. Is you go from, let's say it's 200 grand, 400 grand, 800 grand, 1.6 million. The numbers will look more like that after you get that flywheel spinning. So we're about to hit that point, but the last few years of revenues weren't anything to jump out of your seat for, but they're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Up is the best direction, no matter, right?
Yeah.
And you did say you tried a bunch of different channel marketing, right? You tried different marketing strategies. What would you say was one specifically that helped really just propel the business and start to pick up new users?
With a B2C SaaS, you could go B2B as well, but people are searching for a solution to their problems. So you want to create SEO. And I've got a lot of experience with that. We get about 17% of our traffic from SEO, but keep in mind, SEO is the long game. When you're dealing with a global platform, it's not like 6 months. It can take you 2 years to start working. So do it now. You'll thank yourself later because it's leads and autopilot. So we did a lot of articles, helpful articles, a lot of stock reviews. That's all organic and now working, but 2 years later. So 17% is from SEO, 16% is from YouTube. Then I think we get about 12% from referrals from friends. Affiliates are starting to grow slow but sure, but the strategy that seemed to work the best is actually YouTube. And the reason is you got to ask yourself the question, where are these people hanging out? It's the ultimate question. Like, where are your customers hanging out? Well, a lot of people go to YouTube searching for solutions with intent. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, where I live in Wisconsin, I've got a third acre. I've got woods all around me, so I've got power tools. And there's a broken lawnmower, broken weed whacker. I don't want to take it to the shop, so I go to YouTube, how to repair lawnmower, how to repair weed whacker. I sound very Midwestern right now, but it's like, okay, so you figure out what's going wrong, kind of narrow down what you need to do, order the parts, repair it. Took me about altogether maybe 2 hours. I'm like, all right, I'm a repairman now. This is great. But I couldn't do that without YouTube. Well, guess what? People are doing the same thing with stock investing. Is Apple a good investment? How many stocks should I own? Like, when should I buy? Like, those are all searched answers in YouTube. So we just answer questions against that. It's like SEO. You want to figure out, what are people asking the most, and then just provide the answers to those questions, make them keyword rich. And so, yeah, YouTube, we've got over 200 videos now. I think over 2,000 subs, but every video that we put out, we get new leads, that's great.
Is that sort of like the channel where you felt you're building and sort of nurturing the community?
It is, yeah, and it's free content. With nowadays, you want to provide free content. I was watching a video with Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank.
Yep.
And then another guy that's been on Shark Tank a few times is Aaron Marino. He's got a brand called, it's like Tiege Hanley. It's a skincare for men. and they're on a video together because they've done business together, and they're talking about what is important for CEOs or leaders today. And the answer is, they both said, you need to be an influencer. You have to be on YouTube, whether you like it or not. If it's not YouTube, it should be on TikTok or Instagram, but you have to be doing video because people, one, they want trust. They want to know who's behind the brand. Two, that's the fastest way to learn video, like really short clips. And kind of how do you do that? So yeah, YouTube it's been a great decision. And I knew it was going to be a long game because I was looking at YouTubers and I talked to a few of these people that have over 100,000 subs, and just like, it's going to take you years to get there. But if you create, evergreen content after you get that base built up, it's leads on autopilot. So I'm like SEO, we're in it for the long game. Let's put out that content. It's not a get rich quick scheme by any means.
Yeah, no, and you mentioned like team, right? Hiring, who are the people to surround you that sort of have the same common goals maybe as you, or at least understand your goals. Could you talk a little bit to that? You did mention some of the pain points were in this sort of team that you sort of, V1, V2 were putting together.
Yeah. So to back up, so this is kind of fun to share. So getting the first MVP built was very hard. I went through actually three different people from overseas, and I've managed people all over the world. I will say this, like, you can build software applications, but to build a world-class SaaS is very hard. Most people will fail at it. Like, software engineers out there listening, you really have to pay attention to the details. You got to make an easy to use tool, especially B2C, the least amount of clicks you get from A to B, and especially the point of sale. It's got to be on point. And the first two teams couldn't do that. So there was a customer that approached me that was very technical and had a whole bunch of cool ideas. And I was kind of exploring the idea to bring in a CTO slash partner. I made that offer, which was not a good idea. The benefit was, got a great platform, was able to get that world-class SaaS platform in place. It took a while to build. The V2 was pretty close, but V3 was definitely there based on our customers' feedback. But it was constant headbutting. There was not a lot of business experience there, yet somebody who wanted to make business decisions. And I had to say, I didn't hire a CEO. We already have one of those. We need a CTO. So what are we doing with the tech? But it was very small business minded on their part. They wanted to make decisions that the CEO would make, the COO would make, CMO would make, and all those cutesy things you'll do with a small business. And when I look at it, that was my mistake, because this person, that was the only experience they had, was working with small businesses. They didn't work for publicly traded tech companies to gain real experience. And it was constant headbutting. There was also issues where comments like, the customer's stupid, the customer doesn't know what they want, we have to tell them what they want. And it's like, no, that's arrogance. We are serving the customer. We have to be humble, right? You have to, the best feedback, believe it or not, is the bad feedback, because you want to know, what are you doing wrong? Because if you could constantly get good feedback from your mom saying, you're doing a good job, Jimmy, like, you're not doing yourself any favors. And that person thrived on the good feedback. And there was so many little things. And finally, this is a blessing, that he's like, I'm out. He just, like, one day he was like, I'm out, I'm done. I was like, oh, thank God.
That was easy, right?
That was easy. Now I go back to 100% owner, and you got to really interview and dive in, ask him about scenarios. So now, since that situation, I've corrected my behavior, you could say. And every interview, it's like, it's more questions than ever, asking them, what is your mindset like when you run into tough times? How do you respond? If a customer says this, what would you do? It's getting in those weeds. So we really bring on the right people. But it took a really long time to get here.
Yeah, it sounds it. And you want to get the right people eventually. And obviously you're adjusting your sort of approach to, like you said, hiring slow and right.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping that in the forefront. Financially though, as you're growing in right subscribers, but the revenue, how are you still funding everything to this point over the years? Yeah.
Yeah, so I bootstrapped Tykr for about 3 years. I went live actually last May of 23. I was still at another company. I wasn't taking a paycheck at all. Well, I finally came to a point where it's just getting really, it's like, get off the bench and get in the game. Let's go. So when full transparency, like, I paid myself my first year probably less than 30 grand.
Yeah.
It's one of those deals, a leap of faith. Let's go. And again, this is a come hell or high water situation. I have to move on making this happen. So I know this next year it'll be higher, a year after that it'll be higher. And using other case studies of people I talk to about building their SaaS businesses, again, it's 3 to 5 years. And really, if you keep listening to your customer, if you keep doing what they want, the formula works. I recently heard a quote from somebody: businesses don't fail, people quit. And I was like, yes, this is a no quit situation.
Yeah. No, I love that. I mean, you're making sacrifices, right? Because it's something you believe in. So it's like if you plan well, plan accordingly. Obviously, you're an investment-minded person, so you're not just going to be completely like, okay, I'm just going to take these crazy risks. Was there like a defining moment for you where you felt like, okay, if we hit this number of subscribers or we hit this number of this revenue per year, that you felt more comfortable making that decision?
So last summer, it was May when I really took the leap, and things are just moving so slow. And we're working on the web app. We're still, working on the mobile app. Mobile app took about a year and a half to build, and things are moving slow, really slow. And I'm like, okay, this is not moving as fast as I'd like, but be patient, have faith in the process that something is going to happen. Well, I had moments, I have to be transparent, where I was like, we got to either make a significant pivot in another direction or something has to happen. And I was actually exploring other contract roles, just whether it was a 3 month or 6 month corporate contract, just to get some revenue and so we can make the pivot. And a part of me I was like, nah, keep moving forward. There, for context, I know this audience well. There are about 400 million retail investors in about 17 countries. And at the top of the list of those countries include US, Canada, Australia, India, all over a year. It's like there are people flooding the market every day that have no idea what they're doing. We have to stay the course. And there was a definitive moment that happened, actually. It was this February. I did a lot of homework with email marketing, how to get better at conversions and campaigns and product launches. And I read tons of books on this, and finally putting into practice. You always have to tweak, but I figured out a few formulas on how to get people to, when you do a product launch, how do you get people excited and how do you get them to jump from trial users or people on the fence to subscribers. And did a big test with courses. We have other streams of revenue in the business. We have the Tykr SaaS, but we also have Tykr EDU, which is courses on Teachable. And did a test there and really did a banging job with revenue. And again, in credit, I got to pass to all the people I read from. But um, I was like, okay, it was like a light bulb moment. Like, we got this. We know what we need to do. We need to be running promotions every month, and here's the formula on how we'll do it. And I'll give you and your audience the formula. Whatever the product is you want to promote, or maybe it's a feature, or maybe it's a tier within your subscriptions. You want to do like a 4 or 5 email blast over about a week and a half to 2 weeks. And then you want to, like, for example, 50% off or 30% off by this date. And then every time you send the email, let them know it ends in X amount of days. And then every email you send should get shorter and shorter leading up to it. And that creates scarcity, it creates excitement. And every time you do that, that formula works. And it's simple, but it works. But when you start studying, like, for example, large e-commerce brands, because B2C kind of, this is another epiphany I had, is B2C is very similar. It's not similar to B2B. B2B and B2C SaaS are, put them in different continents. They're so far different. But B2C is very similar to e-commerce. So I stopped studying B2B and I'm like, I need to start looking at, what is Walmart doing? What is Target doing? What is, like, Kohl's is a big retailer where I'm based, Milwaukee. They're all over the states. And like, what are they doing with promotions? What are the little things? What does the copy look like? What do the deadlines look like? What do the designs look like? And I started reverse engineering everything and started seeing the common details. And it's like simple countdown. You don't have to do a countdown timer, but say deal ends in 7 days, grab it here. Bam, next email a few days later, deal ends in 4 days, grab it here. Then you do one or two the last day, and that works like clockwork. I was like, email marketing, done. Check that box.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Not that we're competing with these big, the Walmarts and things like that, but just studying what their strategies.
Yeah, it's really like you gotta go to the top. Like if you're gonna study somebody, go to the top. I know so many people study the gurus out there, and that's fine. But like I tell people, like, okay, so if a guru's making 10 million a year, that's cute, but like there are global companies making billions. Like, what are they doing?
Well, how are you like, because people do get burned out, right? If you're, CEO and you're full time doing this, you're throwing all your time and energy, numerous responsibilities. How do you juggle these, manage your time just as a CEO?
So time management has actually been kind of one of my specialties, you could say. I'd say I'm pretty organized, and I had to get that way because in college I was full time school with full time work, and how do you balance and time management was so easy. So I found it really important. I give this credit to my dad. He gave me this advice. He's like, do that which generates revenue first. So what I always do at the end of every day is create a checklist of everything I need to do tomorrow. It does one thing, like it offloads ideas from my brain onto paper, and then I don't have to worry about it. And I'll prioritize kind of a list of what needs to be done and rank them based on one, two, or three and what generates revenue. So I know I got to go for the ones. That's what I got to hit first. This generates revenue, just this generates revenue. Yes, I got to do these 15 other things, but do they make money? No, then what are we doing? Right? So it's that prioritization that I'll work through every day to keep myself organized. And then I use, Google Sheets or Excel a lot. Google Sheets is just so much easier. My team and I have a lot of sheets we'll share with each other to keep each other organized. Like, for example, YouTube content, podcast content. And with I got a daily checklist I work through. I make sure I do a LinkedIn post, check. Make sure I reach out to podcast hosts like yourself. Make sure that task is done. Connecting with affiliates or brand partnerships, check. I make sure, because those are the things that make the biggest impact, generate the most leads. They generate revenue first. So I make sure that checkbox is checked off every day, and then I can go work on other stuff that sure needs to get done, but it's a lower priority.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because, like you said, why else are we doing it, right? You want to hit the number one first in the morning. And you mentioned, right, like Google, other. Are there like tools or maybe resources that are like most essential for you to run your company?
So we use Slack. That's number one. So I'm the only person from Tykr from the States. So
Okay.
I'm the CEO and founder, and I'm the only from the US, and my team is all spread out. So I've got an engineering team from India, got a UI UX guy from Poland. There, I call them more on the engineering team. Then we have the media team. That's all like podcast and YouTube. I've got a guy from Ricardo, actually, he's our main editor for the podcast. He's out of Brazil. Then we got Jabril, who's based out of Kenya, and then we got Khan, who's based out of Bangladesh. He does all the videos. Jabril's kind of, you want one of these people in your company that, I'll use a term here, and it should not offend anybody, but it should be compliment. It's called a Swiss Army knife. You want somebody that has multiple skills, they can do multiple things, and he's that. Like, he can do a lot of different cool stuff. Every startup should have one of those. So he's that. And then we brought in a thumbnail designer from Serbia. So yeah, that's kind of,
That's a global team.
yeah, we're a global team. Now they're all contractors. Upwork is a great tool, a great
Hmm.
platform for
Yeah, I use it.
finding talent. So majority of them, we just go through Upwork. Otherwise you go outside Upwork and just work through Wise is a great payment platform. But yeah, Slack is number one. And then it's Google Drive. We have Google Sheets and Google Docs. We keep it simple. For engineering, we do our Scrum boards all with GitHub. Other great platforms would be like Trello or Asana,
Mm.
Jira. Monday.com is getting popular, but yeah, we use GitHub.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many cool boards. A friend of mine turned me on to Miro, Miro,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
like whiteboarding. Yeah, so there's so many different cool like just tools out there that you just can go crazy. You can spend a whole day just researching like what's Slack's alternative to this and workplace, and
I have to say something though. And this was an issue we had with some of the other people that were in the company, is they were fanatics about finding new tools to help run a business. And I found you want to pick a few tools and just use what works. Don't re-engineer things. I always get this one person that will send me a Zoom alternative or a Slack alternative. I'm like,
yep.
one, I don't have the time to learn a new tool. And why are we in tool learning mode? Like, we're not some 14-year-old kids in school. Like, we're in revenue mode. Like, pick a tool. So I'm big on, I use reliable tools, and if you have to pay a little more, it's worth it because we just want to pick something and go. So that's why it's Zoom for podcasting. Slack is great. Google Drive, and then we could go down the engineering tool list, but just pick what works and just move forward. Don't play this game of researching and trying, and you're just going to waste yourself time.
Yeah, there's always going to be something new coming out, to stick to what you know. How about if you had to pick like one decision you've made in the last almost 4 years to revisit that decision? What would that be?
The CTO partnership, I would have done that as I tell people all the time now, if you're starting a business, you have partners, you want to go a year without signing anything because you're going to find out who really wants this. And it was 6 months, if not less, that I was like, oh gosh, this was a terrible decision. But I can't tell you how many sleepless nights because it's not fighting, but there was contention over things that just getting in the way. So I would said, hey, I'm looking for a CTO. I want to bring in a partner, but it's going to take a year to vest. Like if you want it, you can work, and then after a year we'll sign a contract, and that should be enough time to see you as skin in the game. And most people, I will tell you, they're not going to have what it takes. They will 2 weeks in, maybe a month in, but after about 3-6 months, you're going to start seeing signs of this person's not ready for the major leagues. They maybe could play minor leagues at best, but yeah, that's one big decision, and it all worked out, but it cost a lot of sleepless nights. I'll put it that way.
Oh, yeah, sounds like it. Yeah, but it's a learning process. Like you said, there's 3 to 5 years in the beginning, figuring out what works and, continuing on. But in terms of like, okay, we're almost at year 4. You mentioned some things that you're going to be launching. What are the future plans for Tykr? Like, where do you want to see this company go and grow to?
One platform I have a lot of respect for is Duolingo, a B2C platform,
Oh,
language learning. Do you use
I'm on that
Duolingo?
every day. Every day.
Seriously, micro learning modules are the way. And I this was about 2 years ago. I was doing homework. I'm like, nobody's really doing this for investing. So we need to get the mobile app out first, and then second, start adding micro learning modules to the tool. So we did that. The first version of Tykr, they're not as sexy as Duolingo, but
You need the mascot. Yeah.
yeah, mascot animations, audio, like
Right.
Duolingo is best in class. I mean, Babbel's pretty good, but Duolingo with learning modules they're the best. They got
It's
600
pretty
million
nuts. Yeah.
users. Like they're doing something
Yeah.
right. So we know that's the way, and that you would call that a blue ocean strategy. It's, find something that's like going nuts, going like wildfire in one industry, and then lift and shift and apply to your industry. And we're doing that. So we're leaning into the education. We know if we want to get to, for example, the big number I'm really aiming at is 1 million subscribers. We can do it. I'm confident it's going to take a few years, but in order to do that, our learning modules, not language learning, but investing learning, they got to be on point. They got to be simple and easy. And again, we can make them look a little better, but we're getting people the content they need so they can go from like a beginner to an advanced investor. I mean, as fast as you'd like. It could be an hour or two, and bam, you're going to know what you're doing. Like you're going to be able to beat the market. I can't guarantee that, but most of our customers are doing very well, and so that's the strategy. So to give you an idea here, roadmap. We just launched mobile app. We got some cool features like projections, seeing numbers where stocks will look in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. We'll have like easy button starter funds. If you have no idea what you're doing, you could come in and be like, oh, there's a few starter funds or portfolios. Also filters, like all pre-made templates already made for you. So you can copy and paste, and that'll just apply to other parts of the tool. And then the next big thing will be broker connections. So you can connect your broker. And if you make buy or sell actions, it updates in your Tykr portfolio tracker. And we'll be able to connect with brokers all over the world, which is pretty sweet. So that's one big thing. And we hope to achieve that this year, 2024. So
Oh, wow.
almost halfway through the year, we got some work
Yeah.
ahead, but
Yeah.
those are the
Yeah.
big things. But yeah, that's what's coming.
That's awesome. How about advice you would give for aspiring entrepreneurs, looking to start their own business?
Gosh, there'd be a long list. If you really want this, like you look at your situation and you're like, you gotta kind of look ahead in the future. If I keep doing what I'm doing now, working for somebody, that's fine. That's cushy. You could have a nice job, but what do you really want in life? And when you take that leap and move forward, it's not going to be easy, but if it were easy, everybody would do it. If you really want an extraordinary life over and above, you have to take those risks. When I would say this, bootstrap your ideas, keep your day job, get your business running on the side, get some revenue coming in the door, and then take that leap. That's number one. And number two is you don't have to come up with all the big ideas. You don't have to be the idea maker. Put that on your customers, but in a good way. You want to be asking them the right questions and really lean on them because they're the ones that are paying you. I see too many entrepreneurs are trying to think of that next great idea and re-engineer. And it's like a part of me through the years was like, I should have just asked better questions. Like, what problems are you facing? What tools are you using? And what are you paying for? Like, it's not hard. I'll just do that, but make a better mousetrap. And essentially, a part of what Tykr is just a better mousetrap.
No, that's awesome advice. I mean, you definitely seem like you're always learning, and you have systems and you have, everything that's sort of not negative, like more calculated, right? And I love that approach because I think a lot of people will just whether it's the software or money, they just chase whatever's kind of like the shiny object. And you seem definitely focused and driven. So I think I've really enjoyed listening to your approach, and like for people who want to learn, more about you specifically, right? Of course, Tykr, like where would be the best places to follow you and learn more about the company?
LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn pretty much every day. That's number one. Number two is, go to Tykr, TYKR.com. TICKER.com, as you can imagine, was taken.
I bet, yeah. Or
Yeah.
very, very
So that's
expensive to
why
buy.
oh yeah. So we did get a .com. That was not cheap, but it was similar. So TYKR.com. And the number three is, you could look Tykr up on YouTube. I got a lot of free, of course it's free. It's all content and you can learn how to invest and gain a lot more confidence with investing right there.
Yeah, I definitely like. I checked out your YouTube channel. You got thousands of followers on there. So I mean, you're doing a lot of very, very cool stuff. So I really appreciate your time today. Tykr.com. And thanks again for your time today, Sean.
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.